Imagine doing a major update on your home and then finding out you're upside down $250,000. What kind of ROI is that? Hey everybody, it is Alyson Wall, your real estate strategist and realtor for the South Denver area. I just finished analyzing Zonda's national cost versus value report, and I drove all the way down to the Denver numbers, and we are seeing six-figure negative returns. What in the world? Let's walk through 5 of the worst offenders in this report, and don't worry, I will share what is working before we wrap up. All right, number 1 on this list, a primary suite addition. Imagine spending $300,000 to bump out, pop up, expand the primary suite on your home, and then you find out that it is returning $80,000 in value. So you're losing $250,000 on this project that you poured your blood, sweat, tears, time, energy, and annoyances into, because it is, as most of you know, a pain to go through construction, and that's a major construction project. Even a mid-range or mid-size primary suite addition valued at $165,000 was returning $65,000, so it was still a 6-figure loss. Much better than the $250,000, but we're still seeing major loss. Upgrade number 2, the kitchen remodel. Now, I knew the numbers from upgrade number 1 by heart because they shocked me. I'm going to probably be referencing my notes throughout for some of these because there are so many numbers, so please forgive me. But upgrade number 2 is an upscale kitchen remodel, right? So this is generally going to be a larger kitchen, and we gut the thing down to the studs and start over, and we're estimating $160,000 for that one, and the return is $60,000. So upside down about $100,000. On the mid-range end, estimating $80,000 in, $40,000 back. Now, $80,000 can get you a variety of things. It could get you a whole new kitchen down to the studs and back out on a smaller scale, or it could high-end a few components of the kitchen while you reserve and preserve and keep a few other elements. But still, you're only getting a 50% return on that. I can't tell you the number of times I have walked into beautiful homes, beautifully redone homes, beautifully updated homes, and the seller is recounting everything they have done, put in, and I'm taking copious notes because a stunning home is a stunning home. But when the seller wants dollar for dollar out of the project, then we hit some roadblocks, because you often don't get that, and these numbers are starting to prove that. And to be quite frank, the appraisers, if you give them receipts, are not giving you dollar for dollar either. They generally will give you the cost of the raw materials, and they subtract out all labor. And so that usually is 50%. Raw material is about 50%, labor is usually about 50%. So it's typical to only get back about half. The real problem is when we're getting to where we're getting back less than half. Then that's a real sticker shock. All right, upgrade number 3 is an upscale bathroom remodel coming in at $75,000, $80,000 with a return of only $35,000 based on their data. So we are not at a 50% ROI on that project. Now, an upscale remodel, we're typically talking about putting in high-end everything. It's the nicest tile you can find, the nicest freestanding tub you can find, a towel warmer that is from the far reaches of the world. The cabinetry is custom of custom, and the faucets are a brand that maybe you can't really find that easily. And it may look like a mainstream brand, but you wanted the high-end, unknown, very unique brand of faucets and handles and all of that. And so we're really elevating every touch point of the bathroom, but a buyer, when you go to sell, isn't necessarily going to know all that. They would have been fine with a mainstream freestanding tub. They would have been fine with maybe a little bit of high-end tile as a element of beauty. They didn't need it everywhere. Or a mid-range tile laid in a very unique pattern, so you paid a little more for labor. They would be fine with Delta faucets or Moen faucets. They don't need the towel warmer that costs multiple thousands of dollars. And so when you go really high-end, that often gets lost on resale. All right, loss leader number 4 is solar panels. I am telling you, unless you know, and I mean know, you are going to be in your property until your lease runs out, your lien is paid off, I don't recommend solar panels. I get that they have bonuses and pluses, and if you have an electric car and you have a battery backup and you have the amazing panels, or maybe you have the solar tiles, there are some really cool things. But unless it's paid off, it is of zero value to the buyer. It is of zero value to the appraiser. Homes with solar panels are not selling faster in the majority of Colorado. I have people who do not want homes with solar panels. That is not uncommon. And because of the debt that comes with them, whether it's taking over a lease payment, having to deal with a lien, it ends up falling back on the seller in a market that's not hot. And sellers are having to take it out of their net proceeds. They're having to pay things off. They're having to figure out how to break a lease, get solar panels taken off, roofs repaired. It is just a roll of things that are not positive. This is not a blanket statement, just like none of the other things I've said so far are 100% blanket statements true. I cannot recommend solar panels unless you're going to be there until they're paid off. Your $25,000 to $40,000 you put in with your tax credit and a few years in the house paying it down, and then you're left to pay that off. I see $18,000 to $28,000 bills and checks that my sellers are writing just to get a house sold. I do not find that to be a good ROI. All right, per the report, the 5th worst upgrade is roofing. Okay, now I think this one for me came as a little surprise. How about you? They focused particularly on metal roofing because it is more of an aesthetic update than a functional update. So on an average home, adding metal roofing is going to be about $50,000 to install, and they estimate the ROI is $24,000 in resale value. But if we go with a traditional asphalt shingle roof, the cost is about $30,000, but you get $17,000 back. The ratios are similar, but it is costing you less out of pocket. You'll get a little bit more in return. And we do often find that homes with new roofs, new mechanical, new HVAC, they sell faster, right? It is the stuff that buyers worry about. They want a sound, dry home. And so when you can market those elements, they're very excited. All right, now before we go on to the things that work, the things that deliver, when you put the money in, you are getting the money out. I do want to share my perspective on the data source, this national cost versus value report. I dug into how are they collecting this data, who's providing the results, and there's an angle on it that I don't necessarily love. So they gather these numbers on these projects, right? The estimate for these projects from contractors all around the country. And that's how we get the numbers for Denver. So I think those are probably pretty accurate, but the contractors could be inflating them, right? They go, oh, you want a high-end primary suite add-on? I'm thinking a high-end community. I'm thinking Castle Pines Village. I'm thinking Cherry Hills Village. So I'm going to the max. This is the highest end I can think of. You and I might be thinking of a home in our neighborhood, maybe one that's a little bit bigger, like size, stature home, and it's just top quality. So it may be that it wouldn't cost that much for what we have in our mind, and we don't know. But they take all those numbers and they average them. Then to get the resale value, the ROI, they don't look at comparables. They don't go into the data set. They don't go to Zillow. They don't go to MLSs and go, okay, well, when a home added a primary suite, what was the resale value on that versus kind of where it was before or a comparable home in the market? They go and interview real estate professionals in those markets and say, all right, if this was added on to a house, how much return would you anticipate that the sellers would get? And then they take all of that data and average it. So while I agree with the trend, I agree probably with the ranking and the rank order of these, they are not spot on. I went and searched the MLS for hard data on homes that had had primary suite additions, room additions, additions completed. There's not enough for me to give you hard facts. That's the challenge. That's why they don't do it that way. But what I saw is that over the span of years, from when it was added to when it was sold, home prices on those properties often almost doubled. The time span was different. There was no continuity. They were in different places, different neighborhoods, different spans of time from when it was updated, the size of the update. All of that varied. So there were too many variables for us to piece all this together. But from where it had been purchased to where it had been sold and when that big update had happened, the value of the home typically doubled. But here's the thing, right? We're trying to isolate the value of the update as if it was completed and sold. Completed, sold, turn around. We're trying to evaluate for no change in market, for no discernment for the neighborhood, the area. We're trying to constrain all that in this report, which is not typically how it's done. I have never had a seller tell me, hey, I'm getting ready to do a primary suite addition. I'm going to add a big, beautiful bathroom, big windows. I'm going to vault the ceiling. I'm bringing the hardwood over here. I'm doing all of this, and then I'm going to sell it next year. Are you ready? Never. You live in it for a long time, and that adds to the market value of your home. It's like when buyers ask me when we're looking at homes, hey, that house has an unfinished basement and this one has a finished basement. If I finish the basement, will I get that money back? And I have to tell them, you are not getting back dollar for that if you turned around and sold it right after it was done. But you're probably not selling that house for 7 years. You're never going to notice you didn't get back dollar for dollar on that basement, but you're going to enjoy it the whole time. And that's true of all of these updates. If you do a major kitchen remodel and you live there for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and you enjoy it, you're probably going to see all of that money come back out of that kitchen remodel. You're not going to notice you didn't get dollar for dollar. The same for that amazing bathroom remodel that you've been craving for years. You're probably going to see all of those dollars come back to you because of the time spent in the home after the remodel. So what this report is trying to do is capture, I completed it, I sold it. I still think the numbers are probably off. I think it's very hard to imagine you only get $80,000 out of a $300-something thousand addition. But here's the thing, when an appraiser comes and looks at it, you already had a primary suite in the house. How much more do you get to add in value for a room that already existed? These are the tricky points. All right, now that we've dissected all of that, put some question marks on those numbers and kind of explained why, though I do believe in the trend line of all of that, let's talk about what works. What could you do to your house that's going to up the value, up the buyer interest, and definitely get you money back? There are a few things, and they all have something in common. You could do a garage door replacement. For the numbers in Denver, we're looking at $4,600 in and $8,100 back. So you're nearly doubling that investment. You could move to a steel entry door. Maybe it's on your front door, maybe it's a side door that needs to be modified. We're looking at $2,300 in, $4,200 out. If you want to upgrade your facade, you could go to manufactured stone veneer. Maybe it's just on the lower end. Maybe you want to do one side panel. Maybe you want to do something all the way up as a feature piece. We're looking at a roughly $11,000 in, $13,000 out. And the fourth one was described as a grand fiberglass entrance. What I imagine is that we have opened up this doorway entrance so that it really feels like we've got, two doors or a big door and side lights, maybe a transom. We've done something really spectacular at the entryway, very inviting. You'll probably end up landscaping with that. But that doorway entrance, $10,000 in, a break even at $10,000 out. If that was a real wood door, it would be much more expensive. You probably wouldn't get all of that out, but you would get quite a bit. I had a client who put in a $20,000 front door on a property we sold in Lone Tree. They did not get every penny of that out. So focusing on the material also makes a difference. But what did all of these have in common? Every single one of them was outside. It was curb appeal. It was the first impression that a buyer got. And they really enhanced how other people would also see the home, right? So when a buyer comes up, they're thinking, what are my friends gonna think? What's my family gonna think? How is this gonna look when I take a picture and send it to them? I want everyone to be impressed with all the money I have just spent on this house. It is not cheap to live in Denver. So think curb appeal. I know it's somewhat counterintuitive because we always talk about do fresh paint inside your house. Make sure you have clean carpets, clean. Update the kitchen lightly, update the bathroom lightly. All the light updates are great too, but that curb appeal is really kicking it back to you because you are inviting the buyers in to love what's inside. All right, what is the best upgrade strategy? I gotta tell you, it's to enjoy your home. And it is to know that you can over update. You can overspend on your house, and if you want to, go ahead. But please, in most of these situations, don't expect back dollar for dollar. The bigger the project, you have to expect to get half back. That's really how it goes. You give the appraiser your receipts, he's gonna slash it in half for the most part. So anything you get beyond that is bonus. And it is because it resonated with the buyer pool, it resonated with the market, and you stood out head and shoulders as what was around you in the market at that time. And so if you do an update and you don't sell for 10 years, you could already be outdated. So you have to remember that as well. The market shifts. What is popular shifts. What's on Pinterest shifts. What's on Instagram shifts. And so you love what you have, enjoy it, but don't expect it to keep upping its ROI and beating out what is going to be around you. If you are thinking of making improvements, whether they're for your enjoyment or before selling, I am happy to chat, and I can also give you some people to talk to. So please reach out, and I will see y'all next week.